I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mrs. Walker, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine Law Statement. All requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the Record and Town News and all persons requesting such notice. Mrs. Norian, would you read the mission statement?
Certainly. The Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
On the roll, Mr. Del Greco will not be joining us this evening. Mr. Darian.
Here.
Mrs. Downey. Here. Mrs. Moran.
Here.
Mr. Nutlin.
Here.
Mrs. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Walsh will not be here this evening. Mrs. Norian.
Here.
Mrs. Nichols.
Here, at this time, we will open to the public for agenda items only. Not seeing any, we'll move right to the superintendent's report.
The majority of my report today will be the 2025 NJSLA results presentation, which I will do in conjunction with Ms. Cummings as Director of Curriculum.
Good evening. Okay, I would like to present with Ms. Bozios the NJSLA results for the Spring 2025 administration. So I would like to introduce the following assessments that were administered during the Spring 2025. We have for grades 3 through 6, we administered the NJSLA English Language Arts as well as mathematics. Our grade 5 also had the opportunity to demonstrate their learning in science as well. During the August meeting, Ms. Bozios presented the results for the access testing for our multilingual learners. In addition, for the dynamic learning map assessment, it is an assessment that is administered to students with significant special education needs, but on site here at OPS, no students actually were administered that assessment, so we do not have any students that we can actually present data on. Below, we have a chart that presents the format for the NJSLA for English Language Arts, as well as for mathematics, as well as for science, as far as the format that the students were administered. There are two different scoring or grading scales that the NJSLA has actually been presented. We have a 5-point grading scale for English Language Arts and mathematics, and then we have a 4-point grading scale for science. The district is mandated to present the participation rates across the grade levels as well as for ELA, math, and science. As you can see, that we do not have 100% participation rates across the grade levels. We do have students that have decided to opt out for various reasons. Sometimes we have students that have to opt out due to injuries to hands, or they may opt out because they are ill. So that's why you don't see 100% across the grade levels. So what have we done already? School and district administration has already reviewed all of the available data points as far as for individual grade level data, the subgroup grade level, standard by grade level, and then the different domains. And what have we done with them? We've triangulated the data as far as comparing it by the Linkit end of the year grade mark to see if our students were actually ready for the assessment. And then we've compared them to the DIBELS as well as other reading level assessments that we've done here in district. We are going to, as far as within this week, we will share all of the data with parents via communication that will be sent out by Ms. Bosius via email, and then paper copies will be followed up through the U.S. Postal Service. In addition, we have uploaded all of the New Jersey student learning assessment data into our Linkit so that our staff as well will be able to look at this data throughout the school year so that we can continue to do data-driven assessments for our intervention as well as for our federal and state-funded programs that we have available. Excuse me. So as far as for science, we always like to present our science data first here at OPS. So with that, we're going to start with our grade level percentages, starting from level 1, going up to level 3 and 4. So comparing our performances from the district to the state, 10% of our OPS students in grade 5 performed at 10% in comparison to 30.6% in the state of New Jersey. And then if we move all the way to our right, 62.8% of our students in Oradell have performed at proficiency in levels 3 through 4 in comparison to 30.1 across the state. We are mandated in order to actually present data by subgroups. In comparison, we have all of our students performing at 60%. And then if you look, we have it triangulated by students with IEPs, students without IEPs, and then current and former multilingual learners that is presented here. We have it also presented by race. As you see, we have our Asian and our white students that are noted here. We have other subgroups that have actually completed the assessment, but out of our 124 students that actually completed the assessment, we have some other subgroups that are not noted here because we have less than 10 students that were in those subgroups, and because it is less than 10 students, unfortunately, we're not able to report on them during this report. As a standard practice here at Oradell, we always like to go ahead on and present by gender, and it's very similar as far as the proficiency levels across the board. As far as across a 3-year trend for 2023, 2024, and 2025, this is a trend analysis with the percentage of proficiency as it relates to the comparison across the the district in relation to the state. So as you can see that we continue to have a consistent measure of growth, and we are above the state average. So as you see here, we continue to have successful growth over 60% of proficiency. As far as with the red line, which is in comparison with all of the schools within the Bergen cohort, we don't have it denoted for 2025 as of right yet. We do not have that data available for you at this time. But as you continue to see, we are continuing to move in a upward motion as the years go on. So celebrations. We continue to have consistent performance across the years. We have equal performance across the genders, as well as we have strong performance in life science for 36%. What are we going to do in order to continue this positive proficiency? We're going to continue our implementation of the STEAM units as well as outside of the day programming, so that we're going to continue to focus on investigation, sense-making, and critiquing practices throughout the grade levels, as well as we're going to focus on physical science with hands-on learning experiences for our students. We're also going to ensure that we are providing our students with challenging nonfiction texts, as we know that science is definitely heavy on text as well as graphics within this assessment. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bozius for math.
One additional comment on science is, just as a reminder, our science performance is so high that we were one of the 3 districts in Bergen County that was asked to present to all districts in Bergen County. They were specifically asking, what is it that Oradell is doing? And we're actually not test prepping it. Linkit does have a science assessment that you can use to help students prepare. It's not something we're using. When I went to our 5th grade science teachers and I said, what are you doing? Ms. Powers, who is an incredibly experienced 5th grade teacher, looked at me and she said, we're just teaching. And this assessment isn't about just 5th grade. This assessment is about all the science through 5th grade. The piece that I was really happy to see that the life science went up, because we've been doing a lot of work with life science in 5th grade with the hydroponics and the gardening. I'm not thrilled that the physical science went down, so that's going to be a real area of focus for us. Physical science has to be seen. You can't just talk about it. You need to drop the pen. And so that's really the challenge that we've given Ms. Cataldo this year, is how can we embed those experiences, not in the STEAM lab, but as a coach in the general education classroom during science time. So as I switch over to mathematics, again, you will see the same pattern of presentation of the data. We're going to start out by looking at each performance level, comparing the district to the state from a level 1 to a level 4 and 5. So in level 1, you'll see really exciting that no one, 0% of our population, scored in level 1, so did not meet expectations in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade. The piece here that is most concerning to me as superintendent is if you look across 4th grade, and I apologize that I don't have my pointer today, I have 3 and they're all missing somehow. If you look in 4th grade and across that row to level 3, you'll see that 22.1. Level 3 is approaching the standard. So there are approximately 100 students in that grade level. So 22 of them are very close to passing. That was the one grade level that really surprised me with their results, because it wasn't aligned with Linkit. Linkit predicted them almost at 80% passing, and Linkit is usually spot on. So whether it was that day, whether it was that group of students is more inconsistent, I don't know, but that is a really big focus for us to continue to look at, because you'll notice the other grade levels did not have that performance level at level 3. The real highlight of our data in mathematics is 5th grade. You'll remember that Amplified Desmos was implemented as a primary resource in 4th and 5th grade for the first time this past year, and I'm fairly sure that that is one of the first times we've broken an 80% passing rate in mathematics. So one of the celebrations that I'll share later is, normally when we implement a program, we're worried about implementation dip, and we had stability in 4th really, and nice increase in 5th grade. Again, we look at that mathematics proficiency by program, looking at all our students. In the past, we've only ever presented students with IEP, but you as a board have also often asked about what happens if we pull students without an IEP out, because whether that number is big or small will statistically change the overall. And we don't present multilingual learners in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, because in none of those grades is it 10. However, I can combine it to show you the overall performance of the school. And again, for me, and as much as I like to celebrate, I'm also very realistic that my job is also to identify areas for growth. The third grade special education percentage is an area, it's at 18.8%, that I want to look at that cohort of students, and I also want to look at our programming, and I want to also know that our team has identified where are the gaps. Because if there are gaps and we go into fourth grade and we don't fill those gaps, we're going to be building on nothing. We again also look at proficiency by ethnicity and race. And just as a reminder, those bars represent students who scored a 4 or a 5, so meeting proficiency and exceeding. And we look at gender. At first, when I looked at this, I said, well, that fourth grade seems like a really big disparity, and sixth grade too. When I compared it to last year, it's actually better. So we are doing something. I do think we need to continue to look at how we're teaching, what we're teaching, why is it equivalent in third grade, and then why do we have those discrepancies in other grades. And then we look at our 3-year trend analysis. When I present this data in December, I often really talk to you about how when you compare third grade to third grade, it's one comparison. However, you also can take third grade in 2023, so that's 70.2, and then go to fourth grade in 2024, and that's 69.7, and then fifth grade, so if you go on the diagonal, that's the same group of students. So that's always a nice way to look at the data as well. How is that same group of students doing when compared to their peers? So that group of students, those third graders in 2023, where they had a 70.2% proficiency, they were 24.3 percentage points above the state. Well, if we go to 2025 and we go to fifth grade, same group of students with their 80.2% proficiency, and the state has gone down 44 to 44.2, now we're showing a difference between the state with the same group of students. So they're being compared to the same group of students across the state of a 36% percentage point increase. This is the same presentation of the same data. I just like to look at it in visual form because I believe that the slope of the data should be similar. So if the state is going a little bit downward, then you would think that Oradell Public School or Bergen County would be above it, but going a little bit downward, because maybe the 5th and 6th grade test was a little bit harder. And then maybe Oradell Public School would be a little bit above it, but the slope of the data would be the same. And you don't see that. You really do see where we're outperforming the state. And I anticipate, typically I will have the Bergen County I results, which is what that red group represents, the 21 districts in Bergen County that have similar demographics to us. I typically have that data by our December board meeting. It usually gets released in the beginning of December. So our celebrations. Last year we had 73% of our population meet expectations in math, and this year we're up to 76%. It feels like not a lot, but it's an upward trend, and so we're going to celebrate that right now. We're also really going to celebrate that 1/4 of the students that took a math NJ-SLA at Oradell Public School exceeded expectations, with 7 students scoring an 850. I will invite those students to be at our December board meeting to recognize them as we did last year. And again, we're showing upward trends through the grades while the rest of the state is showing downward trends as the math gets harder. Our next steps will be implementing Amplified Desmos in K-3 this year, continuing professional development, both on implementation of the program and also the structures of how we teach mathematics, and continuing to use data regularly to inform the WIN period and the new period that Mr. Werner spoke about last week, the math explorations period. When we move to language arts, again, you'll see us beginning by comparing each level, at each grade level, to the state. So if we go down on the right-hand side, you will see that 69.8 of our third graders scored proficiency, 58.7% of them at a 4 and 11.1% at a 5. As we go to fourth grade, we see that 81.1, excuse me, and then we continue to go up from there. We're going to talk a little bit more about that sixth grade performance. As thrilled as I am to see that 89, I love to achieve for that over 90%, but we had something really unusual happen with our sixth graders, which is a trend that we're going to continue to watch. And then again, we look at our subgroup analysis. And again, I'm really focused on that third grade special education population right now. We look at the data by ethnicity and race. And the reason we have more subgroups here than we did when we were talking about science is we're now talking about grades 3 through 6. So we have more than 10 students in the Hispanic and Latino category. We have more than 10 students in 2 or more races, which when we're only talking about 5th grade, we don't have that data. And then we look at our female and male, and again, saw that discrepancy in 3rd grade between females and males, and this has actually always been a little bit of a passion project for me. Are we exposing and having the right diversity of text in the classroom to engage all readers? However, again, I think by nature, as administrators, we're always focused on what needs to get better. So I immediately was like, well, that's a really big difference. And then I went to last year, and it's actually much better than last year's. So we are making some growth. It is something that I do think needs to continue to be looked at. And then we look at that 3-year trend. You will notice that our comparison to the state decreases across years. So if you look at, 4th grade, and in 2023, we're still coming off COVID. And a credit to our COVID programming, we did not necessarily see the academic slide that some other places saw. So we saw a lot of behavioral differences when our students came back, but I think academically we were in a much better spot than some other places. And again, just another presentation of the data so that you can see it visually, and you can really see when you look at that language arts that we really made some significant growth between 3rd and 4th grade here, and then we go up again with almost equal performance in 5th and 6th. So our celebrations. We did have an 82% passing rate in language arts, with approximately 90% of general education students meeting or exceeding expectations. 37% of our students exceeded expectations across 3rd through 6th grade. And we made very nice growth between 3rd grade and 4th grade this past year. When looking at our next steps in language arts, we have access to some reports that I wanted to include in here. However, there's a big sign on the top of them that says "Do not distribute." So I thought putting them in the public presentation might not be the right next step. However, what it does is it shows us every standard. And it shows us how many students had that standard, because not every student has the same questions on every test. And then it shows us what our score in that, our percentage rate of getting that specific standard correct. So we really were looking for patterns. So in 3rd grade, it was narrative writing, which is actually unusual. We believe it's because of how it's being introduced. It's not go write a story about this. It's read this story and now write, but it has to be connected to that story. So that may be that we are not exposing students to that type of question enough. In 4th grade, it wasn't really a topic. it was a type of question. So it was technology-enhanced constructed responses. So it might have been a drag and drop type question. So that's practicing with those types of questions. In 5th grade, we just want to make sure that we continue to expose all types of texts. And in 6th grade, too, I was really digging for something to say because the performance was quite good there. So I was digging to find something, and the one thing I saw was technical reading, and that ties into a little bit of the science as well. And I spoke about this when I spoke at the county meeting. We want kids to be engaged in text, but we also have to teach them what to do when they just don't want to read it. How many of you remember that experience of reading a textbook and you read 2 pages and you got to the bottom of 2 pages and you were like, I have absolutely no recollection of what I've read? We've got to push kids not just to keep reading, but to be metacognitively aware when they stopped understanding and going back. Or we need to give them the strategies of maybe you read it once, then you read the question, then you go back and skim for that answer. Because that technical reading seemed to be the one area in 5th and 6th, if I was really going to, be a little nitpicky, that was a slight weakness. So additional thoughts, and last year when I presented this data, I wove this into language arts and math, but I wanted to talk about growth overall, because growth is just as important, if not more important, than achievement. So part of why I always say that we use Linkit has nothing to do with it as a benchmark assessment. It's okay as a benchmark assessment. Where I think Linkit shines is as a data warehouse, that it really allows us to look at data. They give us reports to look at data. They make our jobs a little bit easier. So here, on the left-hand side on the top, you're going to see math, and you're going to see the number of students that stayed the same, moved down, or went up a level. So it's not shocking that 5th grade was really high, right? They had the over 80% passing rate. Well, if we look at them, they're the second column there. You'll notice that 5% of them went down a level from 4th grade. 61% of them stayed at the same level. 34% of them moved up a level, and in some cases 2 levels. So we know that that's really indicative of great teaching. And we looked at that across all grade levels. And you see that also when you look from 3rd to 4th grade language arts, which was also where I said I saw that really nice growth. I think it was 14.4% exceeding the standard to 44% from 3rd grade to 4th grade. Well, look right there, that kind of tells the story. So in the left-hand column, we see 3% of students, when they moved from 3rd to 4th grade, went down a level. 44% stayed at the same level. Now, some of those students could have been at exceeding the standard, exceeding expectations. They might not have been able to go up. 53% of students increased a level from their 3rd grade. Again, talk about that all the time. Is there something we're doing programmatically different? That is when we departmentalize. So we really do have some language arts specialists. Is that reflection of that? We did, as we spoke about at the last meeting, make some curricular changes to our 3rd grade language arts to try to give them a little more experience with certain types of reading and test taking as a genre. And this is one of my all-time favorite reports. You received the entire report of this from me in one of your weekly board updates. So I'm only going to give you a little snapshot here. So one of the pieces that Linkit will do for us is it takes students at a certain level. So that orange column all the way on the left on the top table, that is the number of students at each grade level. 3rd grade, 4th grade, there was no 5th grade in language arts, and then 3rd, 4th, 5th grade in math, who scored partially meeting. So that's a 2, okay? So you're gonna see that there were 11 students at Oradell Public School in grades 3, 4, or 5 in 23, 24 who scored a 2. 3 of them stayed at that level. You'll see if you go over, they're still at partially meeting. 5 of them moved up 1 level. 3 of them moved up 2 levels. So when we talk about using data to inform our instruction, what we're really doing is saying, these are students who are struggling. How do we know that we are putting interventions in place that are helping them move forward? And this is part of the data that shows that. Now, you'll see some movement in mathematics, but you're not seeing as much. So there were 19 students in grades 3, 4, and 5 in 23-24 who scored that 2 that partially meeting. 11 of them stayed at partially meeting. 6 moved up 1 level, 2 moved up 2 levels. And I specifically chose students who were at those 2 lowest levels. So again, you'll see the same thing in mathematics, in ELA, excuse me. 9 students scored a 1, so did not meet expectations in 23-24. 1 of them stayed there. 4 of them went up 1 level. 3 of them went up 2 levels. And 1 of them went up 3 levels in 1 year. That's how we know that our interventions are working. And you can see the same thing in mathematics as well. Now, we have this data not just for students performing at a level 1 or a level 2. We have this data for students performing at a level 3, a level 4, a level 5 as well, because we want to also look at those level 5s. Are students who were scoring exceeding staying there, or are they going down? I just chose to specifically focus on the 1s and the 2s today. But again, you as a board did receive that full report. I'm going to say 2 board updates ago. One of the things we also did this year is we wanted to see, okay, that's one way to look at are our interventions working, but we also looked specifically at students who were brought to our intervention and referral service team. And if I remember correctly, there were 13 or 14 of them. And we looked at the interventions we put in place for those students. Do we see progress? And so you'll see that 8% of them, which I think it was 1 student, went down. So in language arts, we have 31% stayed the same, 54% in math, and then you'll see that scores that students increased after the programming put in place by the INRS team was implemented. We're really continuing to look at those additional supports for mathematics. When a student's struggling in language arts, we have a wealth of materials and programming at our fingertips to implement, and we have not found anything we absolutely love in mathematics when students are struggling. So we did buy a new program with Bridges last year or the year before? I think 2 years ago. We've had some success with it, but it's not great yet. And as a district, what you want is you want multiple programs, because program A might be great for these kids, but it might not be for this student. So that will be a continued focus for us. Something I will look at. Mrs. Noreen can join me at school boards. We can walk the floor and look for what's being sold right now. So, and this is the other piece that Lincoln gives us a report. It calls it its cohort, non-cohort report. And I thought this was really important to look at because we're seeing such an influx of students moving in. So we had about 20 students move in grades 4, 5, and 6, 10 in 6th grade, okay? Of the students moving in, so they've only had 1 year, in some cases less than 1 year at OPS. Some of them moved in November, some of them moved in March. 42% of them passed math, compared to 78% of students who had already been here for at least 1 year. And again, when you have 10, and because it's 10, I can speak about that number in 6th grade, that's going to impact your overall score. So one of the things we are looking at is when the student comes into district and they're in 1st through 6th grade, we give them Linkit in the beginning of the year like everyone else. But that Linkit is on that year's standards. So we are looking to make a practice moving forward that we will give the students that move in the Linkit from the year before. So we can also compare them to the progress and identify holes that will also allow them to be looked at for one of our September Boost programs. And that concludes, I think, everything I can say right now about NJSLA. Do you have any questions, thoughts, or wonderings about the data? Mrs. Downey?
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. So on these pages with the subgroups,
Sure.
So you're saying that only 18% of kids with IEPs met?
Yes,
Okay.
in third grade,
Yeah, so this
Yeah.
year's fourth grade.
yes, that's my
Okay.
number one concern in the subgroup data, is that specific cohort.
But really,
Well, the 40,
they're all below 50%. Isn't
Sure.
that pretty low?
actually 40% is usually what the state tells us to aim for. There's a reason that some of these students are in special education. So if they're exceeding expectations, they're going to tell us they're not supposed to be in special
No,
education.
no, I understand that, but shouldn't always the goal be for them to eventually meet their peers? So shouldn't that number?
Absolutely. I do, in December, I will also do the comparison of where we are, and that is on our website for last year as well.
Okay. I have another question.
Sure.
So this testing genre that you're, so you're basically just going to teach them how to take the test?
We're going
What
to
does
teach,
that mean?
we're going to teach them that tests are set up in a certain way. And I don't know, we've never done any of that in third grade. And some districts do. I've always said, let's kind of throw them at it a little bit and see how it goes, but maybe that's unfair. So teaching students that when you reach a small piece of text, that you look at a question and go back of it, that's not just a testing genre, that's a school skill. So I don't think we're doing enough of that right now. So we did add, and you as part of the curriculum committee saw that, we added that small unit in third grade, not in any other grade.
Okay.
Thank you for this report. I have two questions. In the science subgroup analysis, there is a pretty big gap between the all students, which is at 60, it's earlier in the,
I got it.
okay, 68.2, and then the former ELL is 87.5, so almost a 25-point swing there. That's not it.
Okay.
It's the one that looks like, it's got 3 bars. I don't know what the...
Is it possible you have, is that your old one, or is that the one in your packet today?
It's the one in the packet.
In your envelope packet or your folder?
No, in the envelope packet.
Okay, there's an
Oh,
updated one in there.
all right.
I think in the one that I originally sent you, I only had former multilingual, and I put the current in here as well. So
Okay.
the 87,
Yeah.
I couldn't report current MLs because I didn't have 10,
Okay.
so
see.
I
understand.
combined them in. That's why that number's a little bit higher.
Right, okay. And the other question I had is, and it's almost a question for myself, is can Linkit be transferred from school district to school district? The data, almost like as if we're doing,
As far as Lincoln Form A, Form B,
right.
and
So
Form
if
C.
I'm coming from Clifton and I'm moving into Paramus, can my Linkit information from?
I don't think so, because it's proprietary to there. We would have to give it, like, we do some communication with Riverdale.
Right.
Because we work in partnership with them. We might be
And I
able to
know not everyone
ask.
has
Yeah,
Linkit,
absolutely.
but
And
it's-
Clifton's a perfect district, because they do.
Right.
We might be able to ask them for it, like, to communicate, when you send a student's file, could you also include
That could be
their
something
Linkit?
that can help us get a better
Yeah.
understanding of the numbers.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking it for myself, too.
No, absolutely. When we were looking at those students moving in, I kept saying, like, what do we need to do sooner? Because it's really hard. I mean, especially with that cohort of students, we had students moving in March. Like, they just kept coming all year long.
Yes.
And just a note about that, if you've been in public education for a really long time, those students at one point actually did not count towards your school or district score. You actually had to be in district for a full year prior, but that is no longer the case.
Mrs. Walker?
Thank you for this very comprehensive report. I have a question on the science subgroup analysis.
Sure.
Why do we put current and former multilingual learners in there? I'm not sure who they are, since we seem to have covered all of the 3 areas.
So former multilingual learners are students who were a part of our ESL program. So we do have to report them. The reason, as I was sharing with Mr. Nutlin, that I chose to put the current is because there's only 3 that took the test, so I couldn't report them. So I do have to, by state law, report on multilingual learners. I just chose to lump them together.
So, because they did better than all
Yes.
the students.
I actually was just speaking to our ESL teacher today. I was giving her a pat on the back that I don't know if she's instilled a love of learning in them. I don't know what the exposure of nonfiction. I would have to really look at those students. Because remember, we are also, when talking current and former multilingual learners, a lot of those students tested out of the program in 1st and 2nd grade. But the state says we do need to report.
Oh, they keep that
Yeah.
designation throughout.
I think it's up to a certain number of years, but I would have to check and get back to you. I feel like it's 4, but I might be wrong about that. And it's because they want to know that when a student tests out of an ESL program, we're not just forgetting about them, because there still may be academic vocabulary issues that need to be addressed. I think I spoke last year about how we were noticing it with math. That specific group, former multilingual learners, was not doing as well in math performance, both in the classroom and on the NJSLA. So our ESL teacher actually created a whole Google Classroom to help the staff. And that's also what the sheltered instruction PD is about. Like, what can you be doing consistently in your classroom to make sure academic vocabulary is being taught deliberately?
How many students are in that subgroup?
Current and former, I know that there were only 3 current MLs, but I can't remember the number of former, because former could have been you tested out in 1st grade. It was over 10, I know that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question. Sure. Back to the multilingual, the ones that are in the math subgroup for the total school, that would just be current ones then? Since it would be more than 10, or no?
No. It's really interesting. So science scores come to us differently than language, arts, and math scores come to us. It's a very different report. And I don't know why, because they're all through Pearson. So when I get it, science specifically says current and former. The other ones just say multilingual. So in those cases, those were only current ML students. That's why I didn't have enough in every subgroup, because current, in 6th grade, there were 3. So I had to add them all together to get to 10.
When we break down by ethnicity, race, and we have to have more than 10 per grade, I guess, is it per grade, right?
Per whatever subgroup I'm reporting.
Okay, so is that the same for every district, or is it a percentage? So if you could have 2,000 first graders somewhere and it's 10, and we could have 50 and it's 10.
Yes. And I think it's because of identifiable factor. They just feel that 10 isn't identifiable.
I have a comment. I just have a comment about the special ed kids or the kids with IEPs meeting expectations on NJSLA, or really anything that if they meet them, then they don't need IEPs. But that's kind of what you just said. And it's like they should also be meeting regardless.
I don't disagree, and I'm sorry if that's how it came across. I'm not as concerned at 40%. I am very concerned at 12.5 and 18%.
But I also think you should be concerned at 40%. That's less than half of them.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. Having experienced this state testing way back when, and when they first introduced science, it was in 4th grade, and it was so interesting how well all the 4th graders did, and the language arts was a real struggle. And I can remember one superintendent saying, "We have a state full of illiterate scientists." And it was really true. It was like 98th percentile every school district in the state seemed to be coming up with in science. but in language arts, they were really down. So we've come a long way.
I think also early on when we had the science test, and I don't know if you were in the classroom at this time, remember there were like demonstrations and stuff?
Oh,
It was super
absolutely.
visual. It's a
Yeah, that's-
very written-heavy test now. You will see kind of like an alignment to language arts and science, because if you don't have the perseverance to read through that test, and there are samples online, I got distracted.
It was just horrendous to try and have these
videos.
demonstrations from each student and from each class. It was so time-consuming and useless.
Question. How come fifth grade is the only grade that tests for science for NJSLA?
It's always been one grade, well, it's eighth grade also. So I don't know, it used to be fourth grade and eighth grade, and when they changed the standards, they made it fifth grade and eighth grade. I think it might have to do with that those standards are in a band. So you can go to another district and a unit we teach in fourth grade, they might teach in fifth grade, because you have a little bit of flexibility of where you put that. But that's also what makes it a somewhat district-wide test, because teachers in grades 3 and 4 better do their job also, because the fifth grade teacher can't teach 3 years of science.
So if are other schools doing it in different grades? Like when you have this Bergen cohort, this is schools that are doing it?
We all test in fifth grade, we have to.
Okay.
But it's not on fifth grade science.
Yeah,
It's on third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. So for example, if magnetism is a unit, we might teach it in fourth grade, but someone else might teach it in third grade, because the state just says you have to have it done by the end of fifth.
I may have misheard you, but did you say that you were submitting to the state? I think I misheard you. You don't submit any of this to the state, right? Okay, all right. I thought it was something else. All right. Any other questions? Thank you. Anything else in your report?
Yes, so just an update on the adaptive test, which Miss Cummings and I will attend the training on next week. We did get an additional piece of information. I was being really open and really positive about it, because they were kind of like, it's just a sample of questions. It's no big deal, you know? I, in my head, had this out to be like, oh, it's gonna be like 20 minutes of math, 20 minutes of language arts. It's 4 hours. So in October, our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders will need to do a 60-minute field test in mathematics, a 60-minute field test in language arts, and a 120-minute field test in writing, where the proctor can choose to give them a 10-minute break.
Is this going to be on the same day, or is it spread out?
We can give up to 2 sections a day, so in our case, again, it is a field test, and I don't want it to take away from actual teaching, because we're not getting any of this data. So we will likely do reading and math one day, so we'll do 120 minutes one day, and then the next day we'll do 120 minutes of writing. What we've put together, I have to put these dates on our assessment calendar that does need to be posted. What we're looking at right now is we don't want to start more than 1 grade testing at a time, because we don't know how the platform's going to work. And if we have to be running around dealing with issues, so we have, I think we've planned it out so that we're not starting people on the same. And I'm in the days of the NJ Ask, reading and writing were separate assessments. When we moved to Park and to the NJSLA, they got merged together. So I am really interested to see what a 120-minute writing assessment looks like. Yeah, with this was just released from the state. The broadcast just came out yesterday, and so it's hitting every aspect and platform right now. But the 10-minute, my favorite is the 10-minute. Proctor can choose to give a 10-minute break in 120 minutes to.
I'm going to bite my tongue.
Are you sure?
When's the training on, or the seminar?
The 25th.
The conference?
We're going the morning of the 25th, which is Thursday. They have started them. We chose not to go to the first in-person day, thinking if there's glitches, let somebody else be the guinea pig. However, and I will include this in our board update this week, they have opened up their more information. So some trial questions and things like that. He stopped.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to, not an objectionable question. Remind me again what subject areas they're testing?
Reading, writing, and mathematics. Science will be science is not switching over, so the Pearson will continue to give the science.
And
test.
reading is comprehension?
I don't know, I would assume.
And do you know what they'll be reading? I mean, as it pertains to,
They just released some sample questions, so I will look at them, but
and what are they going to be writing on?
I will look at some sample questions. But that's all I know right now. As I said, the broadcast, they've really been mum about everything, and this broadcast just came out.
Are we going to have any idea before the test?
About
what the questions will be and what the writing and the reading will be about?
I think all we'll probably get is a type, like a format,
I don't know.
but that'll be
I'm
it.
talking about content,
No.
subjects.
It could be anything because the content of the reading and the content of the writing have nothing to do with grade level standards. The grade level standard has to do with the types of questions they're asking. Are students being asked to infer? Are students being asked to identify vocabulary based on a piece of text?
I mean, what if the questions are objectionable? I mean, what if we're not happy with the questions that are being asked? And-
Well, I mean, you could have said the same for Pearson.
Yeah.
We didn't know what they were, right?
And to the point that it's illegal for a teacher to even look over someone's shoulder. Like,
Yeah, but this is not a state provided, look, the questions weren't designed by the state, right?
but neither were Pearson's. It's no different. I mean, it's a company that the state has chosen to go out to RFP to make a test for them. Their job is to create an assessment that's aligned with the state standards. The state standards are process and skill-based, not content-based.
Yeah, I worked for corporate America for 26 years. I recognize something. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
no one here will see the test, though. Any other questions, comments? Anything else from your report?
No, just as a reminder, we do have our second back-to-school night tomorrow night. Thank you.
Mr. Iapelli?
Sure, I'll give you an update on, excuse me, on the Airedales. They're up and running. They're all working. We'll have balance and testing coming up shortly. There's only one bit of a glitch that the certain rooms are not showing up on the management system, the building, the Medisys. So they have to come back and put those back online. But other than that, we're coming to a conclusion, and we have to work on, with them, working out the damage that was done to the stair treads. So we have to resolve that. But that concludes my report.
How much damage was done to the stair treads?
They did some damage regarding when they were pulling the units up, so they scraped and it's kind of scratched, and I think those treads will have to be removed and replaced. Yeah.
I guess we should add to B and G. Mrs. Walker?
Did they take care of removing the old air conditioners that are in each window?
All those units are out. They've removed them, and we have them.
We're saving them in.
Yes, yep.
Any word on the rooftop financing for the state? Anything with the,
I just sent him another email. He says we should be here. He says, I'll have something for you within 2 weeks as to where we're going with this. So we'll see and take it from there.
okay, moving on to minutes. We have review of September 3rd. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Iapelli. We have approval of August 20th. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Darian,
Abstain.
Mrs. Downey? Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Administrative items, Mrs. Norian, would you take that?
Yes, I'd like to present, oops, yeah, I'm on, okay. I'd like to present A1 through A4.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nutland. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey? Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Nutland?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Del Greco is on here. Mr. Nutland, would you like to take that?
I'd like to present B1, use of facilities.
I have a,
Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions?
I have comments. I took some notes regarding our last meeting. So just for the public, we had a subcommittee meeting on September 3rd. We discussed the parking lot, apparently the faculty parking lot. We've been having a lot of people walking through the parking lot during the drop-off in the morning, and then also the pickup in the afternoon, which causes a safety issue. So we kicked around ideas about securing the parking lot, but, you know, the outcomes of those conversations were not favorable. You know, we don't want to, you know, wall off the parking lot and put in gates and stuff like that just to ensure safety. So we're looking at other ways to discourage people from walking through the parking lot while people are coming and going with their cars. We also talked about shrubs and flowers, both on Church and on Center Street, and budgeting money and how much we're willing to spend. We talked about the OPS sign out front, that it's getting old and it may need replacement, and what type of sign would we be interested in. We talked about the cupola on the roof and how it needs maintenance, and we have to schedule funds and look into what extent is required to fix it. We discussed the lawns, the ongoing maintenance of the lawns. I mean, recently we've had Oradell Little League improve the softball field, and over the years we've put in sprinklers in order to, you know, keep the grass alive, but we're still struggling with keeping the grass healthy. I think one of the key takeaways of the subcommittee was that we're going to not address the grass problem as a whole problem. We're just going to break it down into areas. This way we could section off an area, bring that area back to life, and then move on to another section. This way it's a little more manageable. And then finally we discussed safety improvements. You know, it seems like we have a never-ending appetite to improve safety, which I think is a good thing. Just when you think you get to the bottom of the list, we add new things to the list, or we upgrade existing items. So I'm not going to get into specifics, but these are nice things to have. They're not at all needed, but it puts us up on a level that was higher than before regarding safety items. And that's all I have regarding our subcommittee meeting.
Any other questions or comments? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey? Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Nutland?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker? Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Curriculum, Mrs. Norian.
We have not had a meeting since the last. I think we're doing okay. Just keep us informed, and when we need to have a meeting, we will.
Finance, Mr. Darian.
Yes. I'd like to introduce items D1 through D7.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Darian.
Mr. Iapelli, there's been a recent addition on the agenda for a disbursements of 2 checks from the general fund for $280,000. Can you elaborate on that?
That's state health benefits and FICA related to the payroll.
Any
That's
other
it.
questions? Call the question?
On the roll, Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Downey? Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Delegate report, Mrs. Norian, anything?
I have not, I know that there will be a delegate meeting in November.
That's the
Um,
first one?
I think so, yeah.
Before we go to personnel, we need to go into a quick closed session, so would you like to make a motion to go into closed session?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Roll call?
On the roll, Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Downey? Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes.
I move that we come back into session.
Second?
Second by Mr. Darian, roll call.
On the roll, Mr. Darian?
Yes?
Mrs. Downing? Yes. Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Nutland?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Personnel, Mrs. Walker.
Uh,
I know
yes,
my mic
Thank
on.
you. I'd like to present F1.
I'll second it.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Mrs. Walker?
No, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say we haven't had a meeting prior to this meeting today. So everything seems to be in place and moving along.
Well, personnel, we're going to actually meet for 15 minutes after tonight.
Okay,
We
right.
talked about before, yeah. Any other questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Darian?
Yes?
Mrs. Downey? Yes. Mrs. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Nutland?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, policy, Mr. Nutland?
I don't think there's anything pressing right now, but I'm looking maybe November. That's where my head is at.
Public relations, Mrs. Downey? We need to meet to talk about the communication spreadsheet or whatever. Send us an email and we'll meet. At this time, we will open to the public.
Anne-Marie Spiegel, 837 Ellis Place. I continue to be truly impressed by the progress you've made at Oradell Public School over the past 2 years, from implementing Dibbles and Hegarty to launching an Orton Gillingham teacher training program, updating your website, and transitioning to standards-based report cards. It's clear you're committed to aligning instruction with the latest research-based practices. I'm especially excited to hear about your upper grade word study initiatives, including the use of multisyllabic word program and the expanded math explorations were both excellent steps forward. I wanted to talk about the NJDOE Structured Literacy Grant that was announced this past July. I understand that Oradell did not apply, and this may be a missed opportunity, particularly since every district that submitted an application received funding. Nearby districts such as River Edge got $6,630, Wyckoff got $9,230, and Tenafly got $8,210 were among those that benefited. I have the whole attached list if anybody would like to see. Given the work you've already done around the WIN program, this grant could provide valuable support. I fully understand and respect the district's current emphasis on enhancing math instruction and professional development. That said, this grant presents an opportunity to strengthen literacy instruction without distracting from your existing priorities. The state recently released a new Notice of Grant Opportunity, an NGO, that's due October 2nd, 2025, specifically for districts that did not apply during the spring round. According to the appendix, Oradell is eligible to receive $4,180. I acknowledge that the administrative team is discussing this grant application internally, and I am grateful for that. I do encourage the Oradell administration to apply for the grant. In speaking with administrators from other districts and reviewing the public available grant applications, I've seen how others are using the funds to align with the new state literacy legislation. Some are using the funds to provide substitute coverage so teachers can participate in data meetings and DIBELS training. Others are investing in PD to help teachers effectively share literacy data with families or compensating grade level leads for reviewing new state-provided evidence-based materials and turnkeying them to their teams. Given the innovative changes you've already implemented, I'm confident the administrative team could make excellent use of these funds, even without pulling teachers from classrooms. Possibilities might include bringing in a structured literacy-aligned PD facilitator during a faculty meeting, compensating K-3 teacher reps to review and curate high-impact resources from the state's online research center for classroom use, or structured literacy training from your administrative team so that targeted suggestions could be given during observations. This grant also goes until September 30th next year, so you could even use it for beginning of the year PD or new teacher training. I completely understand that your math is your current focus, but I believe that shouldn't mean leaving potential literacy funding on the table. Thank you again for your time, dedication, and thoughtful leadership. I appreciate your consideration of this opportunity.
Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne Crowe, 77 Beechwood, Oradell. There are 2 points I just wanted to make comments on this evening. The first being the annual 5th grade Sharp trip. As anyone who's a parent in Oradell knows, that is a big thing that the kids look forward to. It's 2 nights, 3 days at the Sharp Reservation. Parent chaperones are asked to go along, staff accompanies the students throughout the day. So I wanted to thank Ms. Bozios for implementing a new policy this year with the Vercata system to do identification check for any chaperone that stays overnight with our children to check against the sex offender registry in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. This was not a practice in the past. The only criterion to chaperone was to be a parent. And so I just wanted to put this at the forefront that I want to continue to make sure that our kids are safe inside the building and outside of the building. So I really appreciate that change being made this year, and I hope it continues going forward. I have 7 more years in Oradell Public School District. This is my 8th year, and I'm going to be here for a little bit. The second thing about the Sharp trip that concerned me when my oldest son attended was the awareness of who exactly your parent chaperone is when your child is there. That was never communicated to us. The only reason I knew who my son was with was because the mothers of the fathers that were with my son contacted me to let me know. My children have needs. I had tried to communicate those needs to the teacher staff prior to the trip to be communicated to those parents, and nothing was done. I want to make sure that that is not what happens this year and going forward. If there are children on the trip that have IEPs, special needs, any sort of things that need to be made aware to the chaperones that are staying in the cabins with them, I think the parents need to be able to communicate either before the trip or during the trip and after the trip what those specific needs are for their children who are staying away from home, sometimes for the first time. So that is my Sharp trip commentary. The other thing I wanted to do was introduce myself. I am part of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council that has sort of reconstituted itself this year. We have a board this year of 9 members, and one of the things that we are looking to focus on is working collaboratively with the Child Study Team and the Board of Education going forward to talk about the things that we see as systemic issues throughout our community. The first thing that we need to do is build community. So we have presence at the back to school nights. We're going to be having a coffee chat next week. And then we have some things on the schedule with the Child Study Team to collaborate. Some of the quick points that I wanted to just highlight that are going to be part of the conversation. When you showed your presentation about the NJSLA, Ms. Bozios, you did indicate students with IEPs, and I noticed that those numbers are quite high as far as what percentage of our student population has an IEP. I'm not sure if you know the specific numbers. If you were just looking at how many students in each grade, I don't know the specific numbers. So the conversation I had a couple years ago with Dr. Roth was that 25% of our population had an IEP. We don't have 25% staff to support the 25% of our students that have IEPs. I think our biggest shortfall is the Child Study Team and all the people that support the things that are not necessarily special education instructors, but the occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech therapist, behaviorist. We don't have a full-time BCBA in this building. I'm not sure, maybe you are aware, you probably are. 20 hours a week is all we get of a behaviorist who's in the building for a population of 830 people. That is not sufficient. So I just wanted to get back into your realm of thinking that there needs to be more support within this building for children with special needs and special education IEPs. And a point to Ms. Downey, I'm pointing out that NJSLA scores, just because you have an IEP does not mean that you may not score superbly on a state test. I have children who are twice exceptional. You gave one of them a perfect score certificate last year because my kids are incredibly intelligent, but that does not mean that they do not have high support needs. And so I'm sure they are not the only ones. That's probably part of the whole population. And so I just wanted to say hello, and you'll be seeing more of me. And I hope that we can work collaboratively this year and over the next 7 years to make the special education system in this building work better for the kids who are here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kate Boschert, 469 Hasbrook Boulevard. I am a parent of a 5th grader and also a 2nd grader. I want to thank the board members for presenting the detail of their subcommittee meeting today. That was extremely helpful and one of the first times I've heard it in the last couple weeks at a meeting, so I appreciate that greatly. Also would like to bring to the board's attention that over the summer, the state of New Jersey did offer grants for institutes of educational institutions to seek state funding for tree planting as well, and it is my understanding that they might be offering that again next year, if that's something that the board is interested in terms of their lawn maintenance and things like that. So keep an eye on the state education website. I cannot tell you when it comes out because of my job, but I can tell you that I saw it after the fact. That being said, I do want to talk a little bit about NJSLA scores. I appreciate the presentation that Ms. Bozios did today and the district's concern about the math scores and the disparity between math and reading scores. And that has been something that has been a concern of mine for multiple years as a parent and also as someone who looked at the scores prior to moving to this district. So I appreciate the district's efforts to work on bringing in faculty and administrators who have an interest in improving the math scores. However, I do not think that they are sufficiently advancing at a rate that I would expect for a district of our means and of our status. So I would like to challenge everyone to try to work to continue to improve our scores and to address that 4th grade population that just isn't quite meeting expectations. I would like to hear more about what resources are going to that group to support them, as we have a lot of students who have a lot of needs, which means that funds do need to be balanced across all students to make sure that all students are getting a fair and equitable education. That being said, I appreciate the comment being raised about the students with IEPs in the 3rd grade population as well, and the concerns around that. I appreciate also Ms. Bozios' comment on looking at the curriculum in terms of teaching students technical reading skills. Technical reading skills are life skills. And while we are entering an age of artificial intelligence, it still is critical that our students be able to read, assess, and answer questions at an even quicker pace. So I would like to see technical reading skills be implemented at younger ages. Additionally, I appreciate what is being done in terms of the science curriculum. However, and maybe I misunderstood this because I came in late, so this is more of a question, science enrichment outside of school, I would like to see that be accessible to everyone and not just a first come, first serve basis, and also for parents to be contacted multiple times for those types of programs. I missed one email last year, and my daughter did not have access to a 3-session program and was extremely upset when she learned that her classmates had attended that program because I missed one email. As we know, Ms. Bozio sends a lot of emails, and the 1,000 that I receive at my job as well on a daily basis. So let's try to be inclusive of everyone and try to address everyone's needs. And I'd like the board to continue to consider that, as well as the environmental impacts of what we're implementing. So thank you for upgrading the HVAC systems and seeing that through and continue to work on that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to older new business. Anyone have anything?
I have some old business. Let's talk about Sharp real quick. I know that we had subcommittee, we discussed it at great length, and we presented multiple arguments from many different sides. But my question is, the comment tonight about contacting the chaperones, it brought back memories when I was a chaperone, and I got contacted on my cell phone by parents. I had no idea who they were, but they were assigned to my cabin. And I know that when my kids went to school, we did communicate by cell phone, beforehand. So I don't know if we have a set procedure in terms of creating lists for phone numbers, like a group chat, text per chaperone, or if it was just ad hoc, happened with me. So if we can just look into that and see if we can just set up, if you can, the school can facilitate those types of conversations where the chaperones knows each of the students' phone numbers and their parents' phone numbers, so they can do like a group chat and everyone can communicate. Because usually it's a non-issue, but every once in a while there may be something that, that doesn't have to involve the teachers or the people running the program. It could be something like in the middle of the night, somebody woke up screaming and they're upset and, whatever. So just something to think about.
Any other older new business? Mrs. Walker?
This is just a quick aside. I have a student teacher in Emerson this year, and I was there to visit her and her cooperating teacher the other day. When I entered the building, as we all know, buildings are locked down, they directed me to where I was to go. It was a convoluted place, and this woman in the office, who turned out to be the nurse, escorted me. She said, "Oh, I'll take her up." I went with her. In the escorting, we got discussing where I'm from and what I do. And when I told her I was from Oradell, and then I happened to say I was on the Board of Ed, she went into this whole explanation of her niece who had attended OPS and how the niece had some learning disabilities, but attended her whole 6 years at OPS and went on to Riverdale, and how well she was treated, and how everyone went out of their way to be exceptionally nice to her. And to this day, her niece still remembers OPS for all the kindness. So it's wonderful to hear something like that as a board member. We all strive, of course, for curriculum and doing well on tests, which we're all in favor of. But to hear something positive like that, and she just kept smiling. And every time she'd say, "Oradell, great district." So that's not for me to take the accolades, but for the administration, the teachers, and our superintendent. So we all want to work hard to do what's very best for the school, but every now and then it's nice to hear something good.
Anybody else? Is anybody else need to sign up for school boards? Mrs. Norian was signed up, I saw tonight. Is anyone else?
Not this year.
All right. If anyone needs to, just contact Mr. Iapelli. May not be any hotel rooms left, but if you're going, contact him. Okay, anything else? Any need for a closed session? All right, Catherine.
I move we adjourn.
Have a second? Second by, Jessica, by Ms. Moran. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everyone have a good week.
That puts a lot of responsibility